Things that Father had said in his 20s could not be unsaid. They didn't disappear. Their consequences, of course, could be put off, suspended, but not forever. Our beloved rulers were naturally reluctant to show any unfriendliness to the wayward son of one of their own. But that didn't mean they didn't all read that little volume of essays whose orange binding we knew so well, or that they ever forgot it. No one did. Everyone knew that the story wasn't over. And so people were often quite nervous around Father. Some people were afraid to meet him. You could see the tension filling their faces. And there were others who saw him on a daily basis, but the anxiety they felt somehow didn't diminish, or even increased. And of course I'm thinking of Joan more than anyone, really. You know, I always liked Joan the best of Father's friends. The rodent, as we called her, because she was thin and gray. Or as Father once said, she was like a cloth you might use to polish silver with. I loved Joan, but she was a little weak. Loud and funny and wild when she played with us children. My friends always begged her to join our games. She was quiet with the grown-ups. Father meant everything to her, but one day she lost her nerve. I remember his face when he told me about it. Joan's going away, he said. She went to live in a small suburb down by the water and never came back.
But almost as soon as we moved our belongings back to Howard's house, it was just at the beginning of the rainy season, things began to happen. And that whole awful year began to unfold.
Darling, please. Help me, please. Come to me, please.
What is it, Father?
What?
Are you... what?
Another wave of nausea washing over me. I'm praying for death. Everything is dark. Everything sour. Terrible sounds. I need to speak to Judy. Very important.
What have you brought me?
Bob left his book for you.
Extraordinary. Oh, yes. This is magnificent.
Dad?
Ah. Yes. This is a drawing of a building which... Did you hear something? My God, what was that? Is there any cereal?
No, Dad.
You're listening to The Designated Mourner by Wallace Shawn. We're going to take about 5 minutes to give you a chance to get up and get a drink of water and do whatever you have to do, and then we'll come back with the second part of the play.
First, there was the rock through Howard's window. Who had thrown it? Did it mean something? Probably not, but you really couldn't tell. And then my things started, mental problems or whatever you want to call them. I really don't know how to tell the story or where I should begin it. I mean, mental phenomena, they're a little intangible, don't you think so? But anyway, it happened that there came a moment one day, not long after the rock, when I just said to myself, well, I'm going to spend a night away from this house. So I packed a little suitcase, and I went and spent a night just all by myself in a big hotel in a tiny town about 3 hours out on the railway line. Well, so late that night I was lying in my tiny bed in my room in the hotel, and I was reading a book of poetry by one of our very finest authors, and all of a sudden I began to hear sounds through the wall from the room next door, and the people next door began to tease each other. They began to laugh, and while they laughed, they started kissing, and they started moving around in the room and falling into things. Well, I was sitting straight up in my bed, and I knew I had to decide very quickly, immediately, in fact, what should I do? What should I do? Should I make an effort to continue my reading? Or instead, should I listen to the couple next door, maybe with one of my hands sort of accidentally falling onto my dick? Well, there was no time to think. The couple next door had stopped laughing now. They were groaning quietly with a sort of warm kind of gratitude. And so I put my book down quietly on the bedside table. And after the couple had finished making love, and it took a long time, they went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. My hand reached out toward the book on the table, but then I thought, wait, do I really want to go back to reading that book? Might I not actually, in fact, prefer to read the magazine that I'd bought in the lobby? The one with all the stories about healthy, well-exercised, rather young actresses. And so I read for a while in that very engaging magazine, but I still couldn't sleep. So once again, I started to reach for the book. But as I reached for the book, my attention was drawn to the end of my bed, where a blank face looked expectantly into mine. A familiar framed screen which held inside it characters, songs, colors, drunkenness, love, beauty. And as I sat in the darkness and watched that screen for hour after hour, I said to myself, well, at some point we have to draw some distinctions, don't we? I mean, pardon me, but shouldn't there be some distinction drawn between the things we say, the lies, the I like poetry, I like Rembrandt on the one hand? And I mean, of course it's important to say those things, because after all, if you don't say them, you become simply a zoo animal. You become an empty thing. You're nothing more then, really, than a large balloon with a mouth, genitals, paws, and an asshole. A nice great big one. But still, they're lies. They are lies. And then, on the other hand, things that are true, like I'm watching this very nice screen right now. I'm watching it, and I'm enjoying it. So,